Okay, Daniel. So, day after United's famous 0-0 victory at Anfield, how are you feeling about that one?
I'm buzzing, as Big Verge said.
Yeah.
Oh man, I enjoyed the absolute sewer-ness of that
Oh
interview.
God,
Only
yeah.
one team trying to win it. As though, I mean, you used to see it a lot when Wenger's teams didn't get their own way. That other teams had somehow cheated by not playing into
Yeah.
their glorious hands.
Yeah, as if there isn't more than one way to win a football match. So, but yeah.
But also, you watch that game and think Liverpool played really well. Liverpool deserved to win. No one is saying that.
No, they had a lot of
And
shots, but they're all kind of long range pot shots. Crap. They didn't create much of any. I don't remember, and I couldn't see in the data like some really obvious stuff they definitely should have scored and beaten us by many. So yes, I did enjoy the bitterness of that interview afterwards and the moaning. So
only one team trying to win. And look at them, they're so excited. It's just, shut up, man. Like, why are you talking like you're something? I think that from quite early on, I felt United were quite going to be quite comfortable in the game. I didn't particularly feel like Liverpool were going to be able to up it because I think their results are much better than the players and the team.
yeah,
And really, we should have nicked it. 2 points dropped.
there were. I mean, what, two good opportunities? Hojlund, was there another one late on? There were opportunities for United, not loads, but given the game plan was to actually be quite narrow, much more compact between midfield and defence, which we haven't seen very much this season, and to be disciplined, as Ten Hag called it afterwards, that worked very well. I mean, it was a crap game of football, but that's what United needed to create it, I think, in order to
Yeah,
get
I
something
felt
out.
like I think that one major difference was no Bruno. And obviously Bruno is a class player, the best player in the team. But the balance, there's a reason why we didn't concede or even really look like conceding. And one of those was the balance of midfield changed because he played Amrabat, and who doesn't run, he waddles. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
Looks like his shorts, like he's got like extra large shorts. But having Amrabat and Mainoo there instead of one of the two, and then Bruno and McTominay, made us look much less likely to concede, and that is the right balance. I don't think those are the players that I go with. I mean, whenever I go with Mainoo, Casemiro, and Bruno, but we immediately looked more solid by changing the profile of the midfield with a more defensive player and taking out nominally an attacking player.
Yeah, for sure. And Scott McTominay was more disciplined than is normal, which was reflected in the fact that he actually got on the ball a bit more than normal as well.
It was funny, helped. Wasn't it? He was kind of busting an aneurysm trying to be the captain.
Yeah.
Trying to get on the ball, be inspirational, and like make third man runs. Like he was kind of strutting about a bit, like he was Frank Lampard. But it's, I say every week, the McTominay principle, the McTominay paradox. Sorry, where something's biggest asset is also its biggest issue, and that is this United team and McTominay. Yes, he's the top scorer, but also the way to make the team better would be to take him out of it. That would be the quickest way of improving this team.
Yeah, sure. And just the introduction of Mainoo just as a layer of class and composure to the central midfield that we don't normally get without him in the team. And it's interesting. He played very well against Everton. He played so-so against Newcastle. And after each of those, he's basically been dropped, hasn't he? Or did they follow each other? And he got dropped and he wasn't back in the team.
He wasn't.
So
he wasn't dropped. He was rested after.
Yeah, and he's been injured, so that's fair enough. But it's like after that kind of performance and the composure that he brings to the team, you want to see him, within reason, play as often as possible. Now,
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about Lewis Miley at Newcastle. That he just plays. It doesn't. There's not how constantly leaving him out is that he's earned his place in the team and he's staying there. But I liked what Ten Hag said about Mainoo afterwards, because he basically talked about how good he is at scanning and his physicality. And once he's settled a bit more, the passes will come. He said when he gets used more often in these games, he'll get even more joy from it. With his skill, with his speed of action, he can get such passes. He's a player who can really hurt opponents. So I guess he was talking about the pass he played to Garnacho where Alexander-Arnold made that touch. And this is, I guess, why the player one of the reasons why I've wondered if we're squeezing him into being a number 6, because he has ability to play there. And Ten Hag couldn't get Fergie, so he's making Mainoo that instead. Because when I see him, the way he plays going forward, I want him on the ball a bit closer to the box. So I guess that's one reason why whoever we end up deploying to play with him, and presumably it's going to, unless Dan Gore makes it, it's going to be someone we buy. I want that person to be able to do a bit of his job and a bit of a number 8's job, so that Mainoo can do both of those things as well.
Yeah, or maybe it's Casemiro, and Casemiro's legs aren't what they were. And maybe he just doesn't have to cover as much ground if Mainoo's in the side alongside him and Bruno, and then you have something of a balance there because Mainoo is some kind of hybrid. But I agree, his passing range and his intelligence in tight spaces, whether it's nearer to his own goal or further forward, is just a class above what we have in the other players around him. And it does just kind of, obviously Amrabat just isn't very good. Let's just be honest about that. He can't keep up with the physicality for sure, and like his technical skills aren't so good that they make up for that. So he's just not that good. Casemiro's back training, and I guess we'll see him at some point over the Christmas break or maybe in the new year. But it certainly felt like he wasn't physically up to it anymore, and the fact that he was getting a lot of yellow cards and reds last season seemed to be an indicator of that. He's just a half a beat behind. Mainoo doesn't have any of that kind of problem. He is physical. He's mostly technical, but he's physical to go with it. He doesn't look like he's often bullied on the ball. His press resistance is really high because he, as Ten Hag says, he scans, he knows what's around him, and he lets the ball run across him. Very simple technique that allows you to just have a little bit more space, right? And so it feels like if we can not burn him out, be sensible about it because he's 18 years old, and not get him injured like everyone else in the squad appears to be, then he's the person that brings balance to the force in this squad. With all the holes that we have, he's the one. But I don't want to hype him up too much because, of course, we all look like idiots in 6 months if he doesn't make it. But it feels like the ceiling is so high that it would be a shame to not have him in the team now because we need him.
It feels like yesterday might have been the moment where he's now in the team. Same with Garnacho, where it now requires concerted bad form to get him out and someone else to earn the shirt from him. I feel like it was that. I'm still thinking about that miss from Hojlund, and because it felt like there was a little bit of a lack of composure there where he just sort of thrashed at it. And Alisson is already one of those kind of lucky goalkeepers where things seem to hit him. I can't think all the brilliant that you sometimes hear that Alisson's made a brilliant save, and then I look at it and it's just like, no, the guy was close, but he's just thrashed it at his chest, and it was kind of that. But I think Hojlund, he does have to work on his hold-up play as well, doesn't he? Yeah, he was
barely able to. Part of it was everyone's at some distance away from him, and they couldn't get the ball to him. United were having a lot of trouble building out from the back in the first 60 minutes or so of this game, and just couldn't get it into him. He had 4 touches in the first half. I don't think I've ever seen a striker have fewer touches in 45 minutes of football. It was just nowhere near it. And so that part of it was United's problem, and part of it is his problem. Yeah, he's got some development to do, and it's United's fault as a club that we've thrust someone who has absolutely no experience of this kind of level of football into being our first choice striker out of desperation. So I feel sorry for him. It's a very thankless task, but he also has to be better.
Yeah, it was one of those where it felt like if he got some early, if he came in and the team was firing, then it could work really well. But because that isn't what happened, he's struggling. Like, I guess turning up without much pre-season, injured, without just having played very much football at all.
Yeah.
But we've obviously seen what some aspects of what he can do, but we just don't have the option of taking him out of the team.
No, because the other option is Anthony Martial doing his best impression of his future Old Trafford statue, just because there's nothing left of him anymore. Or Marcus Rashford is so in the pits of lack of form that you wouldn't really bank on him doing much in this team either. So,
no, and I think one of the things that bothered me, that I was annoyed a little bit about this game, was it felt like we didn't get the chance to give Alexander-Arnold a proper going over, because the passes to Garnacho just weren't really good enough.
Yeah.
The use of the ball was good once they went to 4-4-2, was good for about 10 minutes where it looked like we might score. But otherwise, it felt like, I'm sure that Garnacho hitting that space behind Alexander-Arnold, or even trying to get him one-on-one, would have been something that they planned, and they just weren't really careful enough. They're just so imprecise in the passing that you just... And the touch, that you just see, you don't get the bounce of the ball because sometimes it's just not going your way, but also just the general imprecision of it all.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem with this team for so long. The worst culprit has gone. That was Fred. I've never seen anyone, I don't think, able to do some of the good stuff he did, but the basics, like a 5-yard pass, was just so complex that, bent feet.
Yeah, I mean, he was the absolute worst of spraying it everywhere, and you couldn't tell whether he'd put one on the top corner of his right foot or misplace a 5-yard pass.
Well, you could.
Yeah,
I definitely could. He will not do that. I remember
he did on occasion, not often. So.
The City Cup semi, just after we've signed Bruno. Bruno doesn't play, where we get the free kick at the end, and it's such Juan Mata territory that it's just like, it's not so far out that his little legs can't get it far. It's just outside the box where he was really good and it was on his side. And they give it to Fred, and Ole says afterwards, he was on flames at training. It's just like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think also yesterday, something that hopefully changed, and really, I don't feel like, I know we have, but in like the general pile on Ten Hag, no one's really been saying, he is playing Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire over Raphael Varane. And he keeps fucking doing it.
Well, the supposed inside track on that one, the commentary that kept coming out, not that Ten Hag actually said this was somehow about Raphael Varane's ability to play out the back, but specifically his ability to play out the back, playing alongside Harry Maguire and the passing lanes out to Garnacho or Luke Shaw and whatever. Right. And then he played this game, the entire game, all 90 minutes, with Varane on the left, the right-footed Varane on the left, and the left-footed Johnny Evans on the right. And they both did perfectly well of defending their own box and not doing much more than that. But I was like, hang on a minute, I don't get this narrative. This narrative wasn't true. Was it, if that's the way you're going to play in this particular game? And I haven't heard him justify the selection and positioning at all, because it would seem to go against that kind of received wisdom that he wasn't playing Rafa Varane and he was playing Victor Lindelof or Luke Shaw or anybody else on the left-hand side of that centre-back pairing, because Rafa Varane couldn't pass out of the back, apparently. 5 times Champions League winner, apparently. Can't pass out of the back.
Well, I guess, it's not that there's no grain of truth in saying that he's not as good on the left and he doesn't really want the ball. But the other two aren't great on the left and also aren't great on the ball. So just pick the bloke that can defend, that can run and that can defend and that can win headers. It makes you think that there's something else going on, that there's been some kind of fallout, because it just feels impossible that any sentient being would keep doing that. Because
15 clearances yesterday. That is the second highest Oh, I can't remember in what time period. In a long time, anyway. 15 clearances.
The second highest of any United player, any player?
Maybe it's this season. Sorry, I think it's this season, of any defender this season.
Yeah.
And so he did that bit very well. And I know Ten Hag wants more out of his back four. And there was one occasion. Was it for the Hojlund chance when United played out of the back? It was, actually. It was for the Hojlund chance. United played it fully out of the back, split the centre-backs. It was centre-back to goalkeeper to centre-back to wide and through midfield and so on, right? But for the most part, United played out of the back, got caught in a dead end and then lumped it forward. Or they played the centre-back to Onana, who couldn't find a man in midfield, who then lumped it forward. At one point, I was with the supporters club yesterday. I turned to the bloke next to me. I was like, explain this to me. I don't get it. If you're going to intricately tippy-tapper it between defenders and then hit it 90 yards forward, what's the point?
Well, I guess the point is that you're hoping that you can create an opportunity to do something. And I thought that in the second half, when Dalot started inverting, he worked it out quite well a few times. I mean, he's obviously not good enough. And as I keep saying, because the player that I want is a better version of him, he's the one I'd sell. But I thought he played well yesterday. I've actually been sent off for the same thing that Dalot got sent off for. I was playing in a cup semi-final and we were losing. So I diss the referee, but not to his face. I talk about him loudly so that he'll hear. He books me, which I thought was harsh. And then I applauded the booking, told him he was sort of very brave, whatever I said. And I got another yellow. So I go home and I'm like the girl I was married to at the time, her parents were staying. So how's the game? I said, well, we lost 4-0, blah, blah, blah. Left out that detail about the red card. And then get a call on Friday from their mother-in-law. Jewish Chronicles arrived and there's a match report. Oh, cup semi-final. And it says something like, Daniel Harris then compounded Real Casino's woes by getting sent off for 2 bookable offences. You forgot to tell us.
Yeah.
I told...
You thought you'd get it when you win. There'd be no media coverage.
Yeah, exactly. I told my brother-in-law, obviously, but no, that is true. I had not fouled them. But yeah, I thought he was unlucky. I mean, hopefully not a massive deal to have just one Pisaka in the next game. But he is another one who is quite press resistant, definitely relative to the other defenders, some of the other defenders that we have. Yeah. He's just a bit crap.
Yes, he's just a bit crap. He's eliminated some of the defensive errors that he is renowned for, but really not added much of the attacking stuff. But yeah, he's okay on the ball. It's just like the rest of the game is a problem.
Well,
it's of the sending off. The favourite angle I like is the high angle, because in the actual TV coverage where it's edited, it's a bit hard to see what's going on between all the players and the referee. And the high angle's great because you can see that it's all basically one motion, right? It's the challenge, the throw in, he turns around, it's not his, he throws the imaginary sort of fist of anger towards the referee who books him, and he does the same thing again, right? It's all kind of one motion, and you have to be a particular kind of Jobsworth pedant fuckwit to go, well, that's 2 different things I'm going to send you off for. And it's even more gratuitous because of what Darwin Núñez had done earlier in the game, which was almost identical in its... Well, in fact, there were 3 moments of dissent from Darwin Núñez in that particular incident.
And also that beard.
And that beard. And the elbow.
And the ponytail, he's a right prick him.
Yeah. I mean, I again, talking to the bloke next to me in the pub, I was like, look, the only times I ever...
You were the guy.
Yeah.
This guy's gone home and he's on his podcast going, I was just trying to watch the game.
Yeah,
and there was this really tall guy next to me.
Blocking my view and constantly talking to me. But look, there's only 2 people that kind of tash is acceptable on. If you're a 1930s gangster in Chicago, or you're a nonce, and I'm not sure which one Darwin Núñez is, but it would go with both. So anyway, it was kind of ridiculous, and like not to Like, referees make mistakes, of course. The problem is Michael Oliver makes quite a lot in Manchester United games, and he gets some heat as a result. Well, it just maybe he makes a lot of mistakes generally, and referees do, and we're just totting up the ones he makes when in United games.
I agree. I don't think the standard is high. I do think he's one of the better ones. I don't mind if they start sending people off for that shit. If they're going to send everyone off for it,
sure, yeah. You can't pick and choose. Mainoo, he is the guy who invented the tossing up the team fouls to give someone a yellow card.
And was that him, Herrera?
That was him, Herrera. The one and only time that
Chelsea
rule has ever been invented and then discarded. So,
and was it him who sent off Martinelli? Martinelli got sent off for the 2 yellow cards in one passage of play last season. And then I was sort of wondering, didn't Arteta get off a charge this week? Which was right. He shouldn't. He did get off the charge this week. Yeah. But I wondered if they were raising. Why is no one else getting sent off for this? Then, right. If it's all so fair, and then all of a sudden someone else is getting sent off for that. I don't know.
Well, look, they've done experiments in the past where they've mic'd up players. I think is it the Millwall game? They did it a few years back, and
a long time ago. Tony Adams, when Arsenal played Millwall. Adams is raging at the referee.
That's it, right? So the level of vitriol and 4-letter words passed towards the referee means that they won't make it public, right? Which, of course, since they're mic'd up continuously now, a lot of that will be picked up. So the question of what is dissent, right? So is being frustrated with a thing that hasn't gone your way. Is that dissent? Is it? I don't know. Is kicking the ball 50 yards away dissent or not? Is sarcastically clapping the referee dissent? Is swearing at the referee and calling him a cunt dissent? What is acceptable and what is not?
Right, and it's one of the things. The idea that a grown adult shouldn't be able to take being told to fuck off by another grown adult without waving something yellow in their face just feels wrong. But keep coming back to the fact that the stuff that's going on grassroots pitches means that much as I enjoy the behaviour of players, referees looking stupid, referees being officious, all of that stuff, much as I enjoy it, it's unfortunately endangering the safety of referees on a Saturday and a Sunday. So they have to clamp down on it for that reason. And I wish I wasn't here saying this, and I'm not blaming the players for what nutcases on a Saturday are doing and their fucking parents. That's not the players' fault, but we would be stupid not to note the connection, because we need to protect the grassroots game and we need to protect grassroots officials. And the way that we need to do that is by basically shutting down almost all dissent, even though in theory it's ridiculous. Who cares? But in practice, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that if that was actually the case week to week or even within a single game. And it's definitely not, right? So there have been many more cards this season. It's just not. They don't do it every time. They just don't. And it was just very egregious in this particular game. But we'll watch some games this week. There'll be dozens of incidents you could record just this week alone that did not match what happened yesterday. So,
yeah, it wasn't as egregious as Irwin's red card in 1999, but it wasn't a good one. I'll tell you, thinking else about the game, I thought that Anthony was wank. Just so many of our good situations went to him to die.
Yeah,
I thought bringing Pellistri on for Anthony was a good change though, because
at that point
we started to need a bit of pace on the break, but I think that how crap people have seemed to have decided he is not a fair reflection, and he always wants the ball, and he hasn't ever had a decent right back behind him, but he was going to need to make a big step forward this season, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And we can blame Ten Hag for signing Anthony, and say he should have known, and he probably should. But at the same time, a proper structure saves him from himself on that one as well, I would say.
Oh, well, yeah, certainly. And it appears to be, reading between the lines of the various reporting from people who actually do know something, and there's a few of them out there, to be what Ineos are thinking about first, which is let's get the structure fixed and not worry about the next saviour of a manager until we get all the right pieces in place. So yes, you're right. Ten Hag should have been saved from himself there. I mean, the thing with Anthony is the only thing that stands out, and it's true both with your eyes and the data, is his defending. Yeah, he does that, the defensive part of his game, very, very well. He's very disciplined. He works hard all of the time. He covers his full back. He actually makes tackles and interceptions. He's quite high in the rankings. Every attacking metric is in the 30th to 70th percentile. I mean, he's right in the middle of the averages you can get for being an attacking player. And of course, he's got 0 assists and 0 goals this season, which is another one.
That is a good important metric, that one.
Quite an important one for one of your 3 attacking players, yeah. It's I mean, I think,
but
yeah.
In Ten Hag's defence, I would say the reason one of the reasons anyway, he went for the players that he knows is because the club hasn't made provisions to prevent that from happening.
No, they definitely have not. I mean, they built so like 2 years ago when Murtough got the job, 18 months ago, whenever it was, I thought, well, okay, let's wait and see what happens. But this is a step forward. It looks much more like every other elite club in Europe, pretty much, right? You have a director of football or football director. I think Murtaugh's title is.
Is it?
What the difference is, I'm not sure.
Director to the football.
Yeah. Football director of, and Andy O'Brien came in as his assistant, and then Brown, I'm forgetting his name, Dave Brown, as the head of transfers. And so they just and like hundreds of scouts and data analysts.
Is that as in like head of transfers? Is that the things?
Well, it was
things that kids put on themselves.
Yeah, Matt Judge's.
You can get a bit of pencil. That's
it. Matt Judge's replacement, effectively. Matt Judge, who was not someone in the football world and was just a negotiator for commercial deals, and then was told to go and buy players, right? So didn't work. None of the structure worked. But unfortunately, United's record under the Murtough regime, for want of a better word, it's shockingly bad. It's just bad. It's like Martinez has been great when he's not injured, but he's been injured a lot. But what else? Onana's a big question. Malacia's a big question.
So I think
Hojlund's
that's harsh
a question.
Because... but Malacia. So to look at last season's one, Martinez, massive success.
Yes, massive success.
Anthony, probably massive failure, and then Casemiro, overall a success. Let's see what happens this season, but also just a loss leader because he needed a player for right now. And Casemiro was the best player he thought he could get for right now, knowing that you've got Mainoo coming up behind. So get 2 good years out of Casemiro. We haven't had it, but that probably was the idea. And he's obviously been injured or suspended since basically the whole of the fucking 2023.
Top stuff.
So that's Malacia was 15 million quid and he was useful. I would say just last season, we got our 15 million quid's worth out of Malacia. We don't know that he's going to go on to be good enough to play for United, but if we sell him, it'll be for more than 15 million quid. And we've got Alvaro Fernandez. So I'm giving Malacia, I'm happy. I'm happy with Malacia. It was a gamble.
Yeah.
It was cheap and we got use out of him. Anthony, probably a failure. So I would say last summer, like the first summer, varying degrees, but I'd say 3 out of 4 were good enough to not be failures, definitely. And then this summer, we just don't know yet. Like, well, how can I judge? I think Mason Mount was the wrong player, but that doesn't mean he won't be useful. But also, how can I judge him when he's had 3 injuries in 5 months? I can't.
No, that's true, and it's the first part. I guess my instinct goes to, and can't see it yet, but. Obviously, like all these people we've mentioned in this conversation should be able to see it better than me. So, I'm just a podcaster. It's not very important in the grand scheme of things. Onana, we'll see. I don't know. There's some fundamentals there I'm pretty concerned about. He flapped at a couple yesterday. and inconvincingly punched another one, but did the things he had to do. Fine, didn't chuck one in, which is a bonus.
Yeah, he made a good save. The good save from the header.
Yeah,
it's still some errors while he settles in. Some big errors. He's nervous. Are vaguely understandable, but not totally understandable from someone of his level of experience. I wouldn't say. It's hard I don't blame him for losing the playing out from the back, because how can you play out from the back with those dickheads in front of you and constantly rotating cast of second choice, second raters? I mean, I understand it completely, but I keep coming back to the fact that the massive errors he continually makes that are responsible for our elimination from the Champions League are a facility of untidy, messy, scruffy, impetuous goalkeeping. And he's not about to change his style. So it feels like we're going to need another goalkeeper.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I guess there was a red flag at the it's the World Cup, before the World Cup, or AFCON, was it, where he was asked by Rigobert Song to change the style and go a bit more direct, and he was basically tiki-taka or death. And so the coach chose footballing death, although he's back now with in the fold.
Well, he's back. I'm not sure that Andre is a suitable name for a goalkeeper. Andre feels to me more like a crooner at some kind of nasty hotel on the Costa Brava.
Do you think names can say much about footballers? There was an England under-17 game at the recent World Cup where they had 5 double-barreled players in the team. I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I commented in our WhatsApp group, the old crew, and they were like, oh, it doesn't like modern family structures. I was like, no, Jesus, not that.
I've always thought that if Nigel Farage had been called John, then maybe Brexit would have never happened, because he wouldn't have been so furious and taking out his frustrations at being called Nigel. And
you think that's it? Childhood trauma from being called Nigel. Yeah,
I do. I think that had he not been called Nigel, he'd be less racist. Yeah, I do think that.
It's an interesting theory. We'll never be able to prove the counterfactual, but yeah,
exactly. But who else? There are other players, and I'm trying to think who they are now, where it feels like they've got a name. Titus Bramble. I think that Titus Bramble got as far as he got in football, partly because he was called Titus Bramble, and if he'd been called John Smith, he would have not necessarily made it to the Premier League. Yeah. Being called Titus Bramble was helpful, I think.
Yeah.
So I think this stuff does matter. That's what I'm saying. What your name is. I mean, not always, obviously.
But, whether it's John Edwards or whoever might be that United bring in to replace John Murtagh, I don't know whether it's going to be a fancy name in there. Although we do have Dave Brailsford. Is that, Dave's kind of a football-y name, isn't it?
Sir Dave.
Sir Dave. Sorry, Sir Dave. EPO Dave.
Asthma Dave. Just that whole British cycling thing just totally made me laugh. That the reason why we were so good at it in this country, well, the country that I am in, I guess, is I definitely don't consider myself we there, but the reason why this country is so good at it was anything more than it's fucking expensive to do, and most countries don't do it.
Yes, there was. Yes, absolutely. They chucked a lot of money at it. If you have good infrastructure, and it's true. Actually, like to the wider point there. I mean, it was a point made in Soccernomics, which has had a few editions now and called some different things in different countries. But one of the points was there's a very high relationship between GDP per capita and success in sport. Well, what a surprise! Not entirely based on that, of course, because there are definite exceptions. Brazil being one. But yes, there is a strong link between the two things. Yeah, for understandable reasons.
And becoming more so now, I would say, particularly if you look at what's going on in European football in particular, that the richer countries are just doing better. It feels now like England are going to be good at football forever because the money in the Premier League has led to money in the system that has led to the culture of the country changing such that there'll always be good footballers, they'll always be found, and this will always be a good place to be a footballer.
Yeah. Can we find some good footballers for United? So
no,
no, apparently not.
I mean, we sort of can, but what if we're just cursed?
Yeah, maybe. I think that's probably.
What if Fergie did the deal?
Fergie did the deal. He did the Faustian deal, and we're going to be shit forever. Maybe.
Yeah, like Dorian Gray. Yeah, the Dorian Gray. Well, I mean, he sort of did do that deal with the Glazers, sort of, in that he did by allowing the takeover. He did sort of condemn United to be likely shit after he turned it in. What a bottler! Quitting like that, pathetic, weak. Why isn't he still manager? I mean, it is one of those what would have happened if Fergie had been 10 years younger or had stayed on? Because he did force the title out of that team, but it wasn't good. The 2011-2013 teams weren't good.
No. Or the other way around. What if he had actually quit in 2002 and we'd got Sven as manager? Would the spiral to mediocrity have just happened a decade earlier? Probably, right? So,
which means we might be out of it now.
Yeah, or out of the Premier League and mulling around the Championship. So, I mean, it's one of the great dastardly moves, letting everyone think you were quitting and then coming back just to screw them over just for just another decade or so. Yeah, I wonder who in that squad at 2001, 2002 squad was absolutely relieved that Fergie was going and had a moment of horror afterwards.
I think I remember Red Issue saying once that the players, like the level of reverence and adoration, if you remember this when he quit properly at the end in 2013, like the thing that always really stuck with me, I found quite moving, was Raphael when they beat Swansea and they do the lap of honour, Raphael is wearing a t-shirt that he's had made, like a footballer on shitloads of money. He has gone to the trouble of having a t-shirt made in fucking Snappy Snaps or whatever. And on that t-shirt is a photo of him and Fergie. And to go to, I mean, it's not a massive length, but it's like a length that you would go to for someone, but that you thought to do it, and it's just like you and them together that you're just like so happy to have known them. Like, I found the way, like Van Persie also, you could see was just like, when he encountered Fergie, was just so delighted to have come to learn at the feet of this great master.
I would say Raphael would probably just text his PR people, but I actually sat next to his brother for 12 hours on a plane to Brazil once. He didn't say much because
Fabio or a different brother.
Fabio, yeah. His English was not awesome, so my attempts at doing conversation were not great. But we were in the love seats on the BA plane, so he couldn't get away from me.
Oh, I guess because you obviously you get the legroom seats.
Yeah. No, I did in first class, So.
So I remember Red Issues like in 2002. It wasn't really like that. I think maybe it's just different kinds of players, because you couldn't say that that Beckham and Scholes and Giggs don't have reverence for them. I think it's more the way that they were raised was probably less touchy-feely, so that football is cutthroat, so that when people move on, like you just get some new people. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes, like when you hear that footballer A was best man for footballer B, sometimes I think, well, don't you have any other mates from before you were a footballer? But they just they go through so much stuff together, and I think it's probably quite intense at the time, but you've got to be mercenary about it. So when you move on, it moves on. Whereas, I don't know, maybe by the time 2013 comes around, it's all a bit more touchy-feely. The style of management is a bit more touchy-feely, probably giving a little bit more pastoral care, or Fergie's mellowed a bit as he's got older, so the players maybe feel more comfortable about coming to him for pastoral care as well. I don't know, but yeah, probably that. But also, I guess the legend of Fergie in 2002 versus the legend of Fergie in 2013, also very different. In 2002, he's a great manager who has saved United. By 2013, he's the greatest.
Yeah, well, true, and especially in the context of what we now know of the Glazers' ownership and their ability to structure and run a football club, the ability to turn that dross from 2002 to 2005 into a 3 times Champions League finalist, and I can't remember how many titles it was before he retired. Several was a stroke of unbelievable genius. So
yeah, good football manager in my opinion, Alex.
Yeah. Shocking take there,
and you can print that.
Yeah,
as he once says.
All right. Well, I guess that's Liverpool. We've got. Do we feel better about what's coming up next? Because I was looking at Liverpool, West Ham, Villa, and Bayern before this as like quite high up on the potential for losing a whole bunch of games in a row. But we should feel better after actually having got something out of it, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham be a different kind of game. How do you go about signing Anthony and leaving Kudus there? Who you could have got for
half the price.
A lot less.
Less than half the price.
And then some, I could probably. Because also he'd had a year less.
Yeah.
Also, it's even more nuts. Like Ghana drew with Comoros or lose with Comoros in the first World Cup qualifying, and you sometimes get managers who want to they're desperate to show you how clever they are, so they do something so you'll think it's clever. And Chris Hughton leaves Kudus out of that Comoros game, and Ghana managed to not win. But yeah, I mean he looks a real player, Kudus, and I thought Luke Shaw played well yesterday. So that'd be an interesting battle. But I'm hoping that, because he's got a decision to make now, Ten Hag, because is he prepared to drop Scott McTominay?
Yeah, that's a good question, because he doesn't appear to be. Yeah.
Because it now feels like that is what he has to do. And politically, he can leave out Amrabat. But when Casemiro's back, then you are going to have to do something. Because he obviously knows that Mainoo is the future of this team. He says it I know we've all been pissed off that we'd like to have seen more of Mainoo than we have since the Everton game. We just want him to play in every game, and maybe he is being a little bit too circumspect, but he has been out. But it feels like he's had a few games now and he's ready. Yeah. So he does have to make a decision. And
it's not a midweek game. They've got a full week off. And so, the recovery will be fine, and Mainoo can play 2 games in 7 days. I think that's fine for him as a young, fit man. And so it really will be a question now. If Ten Hag goes straight back to what he was doing before and the dross that United were producing by playing Bruno, McTominay, and Amrabat in this one, I will be very disappointed, I have to say.
Someone needs to tell him that.
Yeah, someone needs to. How can we? Yeah. All right, Baldy. There's a.
Yeah. So I think if I can't remember what I was going to say. I just like, but I would like it. I would like it if we were good. The West Ham game. It's that because it is a difficult game. West Ham. You do. One thing that I wonder if it makes a difference, and Ten Hag's obviously we've criticised him, and he has been criticised for taking the amount of time it's taken him to not get us playing coherently, versus what we see from Villa and what we see from Newcastle and what we see from Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are other differences, but I think one significant one will be when Postecoglou, Howe, and Emery took their jobs, they did not have midweek football. And Ten Hag has had the busiest schedule last season of any manager in the world.
Yeah, more than 60
not
games.
A lot of time. Yeah. Not a lot of time to do any coaching. And when I say that, I don't know that his coaching's any good, but it's almost like another excuse is being taken away. You're going to have fit players, hopefully, from more or less now till the end of the season. You're going to be able to coach, and we're going to see. We're going to see if you're any good. And I think that it's not unreasonable of us to posit, well, what he would have turned up hoping to do might not work. Winning that Eredivisie with that Ajax that he had is very different to competing in this Premier League, and maybe the kind of shit he was getting away with there. And let's not forget that Ajax team eventually got fucked up by Premier League goal power, basically. Mm-hmm. Just some dickheads on the bench that can make stuff happen, which Tottenham had. Yeah. That what he could get away with in the Eredivisie, he can't get away with in the Premier League, this man-to-man in midfield stuff, when you've got the best players, but not just the best players, when you've got the best players by miles and miles.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, to come back to a player we talked about a lot, Anthony, like his one trick of coming inside to float the ball to the back post is not successful in this league. His second trick, of which he's very, very, very not good, of knocking it past the player on the outside and trying to run around the outside, does not work in the Premier League level. I've only ever seen Gareth Bale pull it off, right? Every other defender of any competence is able to just move across the line, right? And it just doesn't work. He's not able to go around the outside as a result. But I do.
The kind of thing your dad does on you in the garden.
Yeah, exactly. I do that with my 10-year-old all the time, and I feel quite good about myself for doing it. And then he punches me right in the dick. So, it's like... True story. So that didn't work. It does give me big pause, not to relitigate all this again, but about Ten Hag, that he thought that he could get away with it with so many of his players, right? So the fact that he thought Anthony would be what he knew of Anthony, of working with him closely, would translate. And what he knew of Amrabat from working with him 6 years ago would translate. And what he knew of Eriksen, although that's different because, everyone's seen a lot of Christian Eriksen. Might fully
Eriksen
work.
and Amrabat.
So.
Eriksen and Amrabat are at United not because they're good enough, but because they're free enough.
Yeah, well, true.
These are and Amrabat is at United probably for another 6 months, and then a letter. Eriksen different, free, nice to have around, different to what else you've got. Good substitute. Like I like having Eriksen in the squad. I don't like starting games with him particularly, but he's someone that I'm happy to have around. Amrabat, I'm sure, will soon be waddling back to Florence, and
dear Sofian, it's not me.
So
it's you.
So at that level, if you're bringing someone in for a year, number one, it might be the personal connection that enables you to make that happen. I mean, Val Vegas probably had lots of options, and he came to see that. But so if you might know their agent, you know their players. It probably makes it easier. And also, if you're only bringing them in for a year, you're also thinking, what kind of person are they? They're going to arse up my changing room. So, but the main reason, as I said earlier, is that his talent ID isn't his job. Scouting isn't his job. Director of football isn't his job. His job is demanding, pressurised, and hard. So the amount of time he has to devote to doing other people's jobs probably isn't that much. So, Anthony is difficult because his numbers weren't good in Holland either, particularly. No. So it's a really because you think that he's going to be good enough to play, you want to make your team, you want United to be the best team in the world. That's your brief here. And you think that Anthony's good enough to be part of that. It is strange. We can't say it isn't, even though, as I keep saying, I still think he's been better so far than people say. But it doesn't look like he's going to make the leap.
No.
And the idea that, how did it not happen that someone said, well, this player has done this and this, we could get... I don't know. I mean, who knows how the conversation went? And maybe they just felt that they couldn't deny him who he wanted in that first window.
Yeah.
But
Well,
someone.
I suspect that's it because, the level of detail required at United to sign off on the check is apparently very high, right? So someone signed off on it anyway, knowing all of that. Coming back to West Ham, they are legitimately good through midfield. I mean, they have good players in there that make them better than a David Moyes side really should be.
Paquetá also excellent.
Paquetá, Alvarez been excellent. Kudus further forwards been excellent. James Ward-Prowse gives them obviously real danger from set pieces, but he was very good at the weekend and running power. Yeah, so they are good through there. They do lack some options up front. I think that's true, and they are pretty static at the back. But they are ahead of United in the table for a reason. They are getting enough results.
With all these games like this, you think if we play well, we'll win, but we could easily lose this in abject fashion.
And that would be a real massive step back, wouldn't it, if that happened? But it'll be interesting because front foot United hasn't created much, but has left open itself at the back a lot this season. So, and we haven't seen that kind of performance that we saw at Anfield at all this season. So what do United do here? Are we more open? Do we play Bruno and McTominay again and expect not to be caught in the transition again?
It feels like that's what will happen. That if I was guessing, I would guess that Bruno comes in for Amrabat. I'll do fucking time. I really will. But that would be my guess. The other thing I think they really need to work on is getting something out of Hojlund. Whether that is getting someone close to him when you're trying to hit him long so that if he does arse up his touch, then there's someone there to collect it. Is he going to run front post or is he going to run back post? He needs to know when the ball's coming in. And it just...
Yeah, yesterday wasn't the game to judge him really because there were so few touches. But just generally, yes, he does not get the ball into space very often. You'd think that would be a strong point, wouldn't you? That
he's getting the fewest passes. He's getting hit. I saw a statistic, and I'm now going to look like a knob because I'm about to big something up without actually knowing exactly what it is. But I saw heard some kind of statistic this week about how few passes centre forwards are receiving, and he is right down there. Lowest of the low of service.
Yes, and if you add him and Martial together, they're still in the bottom third for that particular metric.
This is also that McTominay thing because he needs Bruno near him. You've got this elite, like one of the greatest creators in world football. And he's not near enough. I thought we'd be seeing Bruno sliding balls down the side, him holding defenders, pinning centre-backs, holding them off with his arms. Like Lukaku could do that as well. Just out-physicaling defenders, like shift, shoot. I thought that's what we'd be seeing from him, and we're not. And it's weird because obviously Ten Hag isn't telling them nothing, but they play like he's telling them nothing. Yeah. Part of their job is obviously standards. And they are responsible for their own standards. And when I say professional standards, I really mean fuck all. I mean putting in effort and concentrating. Those are professional standards of being a footballer, really. You work your arse off and you concentrate hard. That's it. And I'm not really seeing that much of that. And that was the Liverpool game was one of the first times we'd really seen that. But also, that's the player's responsibility, but also it's the manager's responsibility to inspire them. And he's not a manager who fires people up. They're not coming out to not get beat for him. And so when that's the case, you've got to really get the kind of the tactical element right, and you've got to have characters that don't require that. I don't know if we do or not, but you have to. The tactical stuff has to be bang on, and it's just there's something's getting lost somewhere. But then that was clearly the case with Ole, whose coaches who were getting instructions from McKenna and Carrick, who obviously weren't telling them to just be dickheads. That was all their own words. So I don't. Yeah. Hopefully now And it really does come down. Now Varane's in the team. It really does come down to Martinez coming back and Casemiro coming back, but to the composition of that midfield. And if he would just get that composition of the midfield that we all know what it is and leave it alone, and I don't mean not give them instructions, but just try and let a team gel and settle. And this probably isn't even the best time of the year for that because you will have to rotate over Christmas, but you're trying to keep the bones of the team the same. Then the players start to build partnerships on the pitch. They start to feel comfortable. And then you'll start to see results. But it won't be good. It will not be good on a regular with Bruno and McTominay in the same midfield. It will not.
No. So we've got West Ham, then Villa. Villa is on Boxing Day. And then I forget, we get one more before the Wigan game, don't we?
We'll lose at home on Boxing Day. I mean, I've got a bad feeling about that.
Forest, and then the Wigan game. So it's busy, but there's definitely been busier Christmas periods.
Yeah,
23rd, 26th, 30th, and then the 8th. So
they'll still do loads of rotating because they feel like they have to. But you're right. Actually, you do not need to rotate that much there, particularly if you can get one of those games won quickly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's the West Ham game's definitely an opportunity. So is Forest. The Villa game, and we'll come back to that next weekend. But yeah, obviously that looks dangerous. Although I have to say, not that I have any sort of soft feelings for Villa or anything, but I did quite enjoy Ollie Watkins giving it to the crowd after he scored at the weekend, and his explanation thereof was quite enjoyable. Yeah.
What did he say?
Well, he tried to say it wasn't like I wasn't directing it the whole crowd and the opposition, just that one bloke who's giving me shit all game. Maybe or maybe not true. I don't know, but look, it's I don't know. That's part of the game. Enjoying
Villa
it,
interesting.
Right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, Villa interesting because they've got good skill level and they're really physical as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, it was funny because I sort of feel like it's not a great matchup for us, but we beat them quite nicely when we played them in the cup last season. And we've had like that'll be a good game. That should be a really like a proper good Boxing Day game. But yeah, we know what has to be done, and it feels like we shouldn't be that far off being good, but we might be miles away from being good.
I mean, they've scored double the amount of goals we've scored, Aston Villa. Double.
17 goals in 18 league games is a total disgrace. And we can make a million excuses for Ten Hag that are fair and exculpatory, but there's no fucking excuse for that whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Well, on that joyous note, we'll bid you farewell and catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Please.